gentlemen, a highly anticipated summit between American President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin ended without any agreement to halt or resolve the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. While both the leaders described the talks as productive, there was no breakthrough or commitment on the central issue of the conflict. Donald Trump claimed great progress had been made, stating that many points were agreed upon, though a few remain unresolved. He, however, claimed that there's no deal until there's a deal.
I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelenskyy and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think, you know, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with.
Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin has praised his recent talks with Trump, describing them as constructive and saying that the two leaders have reached an understanding. Putin also reaffirmed Donald Trump's long-standing claim that the war in Ukraine would not have started if Donald Trump was the president, saying that the conflict escalated during Biden's administration. He's also alleged that he had warned Biden about the risks of escalation prior to the outbreak of the hostilities.
I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine.
My colleague Srinjoy joins us for more on this. Srinjoy, you know, this has been a crucial summit in Alaska, but now everybody awaits the meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Washington, D.C. on Monday next. Do we expect some sort of fireworks like we saw last time?
Probably not. There's no more interested than Zelenskyy, which is why he is going to Washington as quickly as he can. Because there are several things we don't know, and he needs to know those things. One, what actually happened, what led to these talks ending the way they have. It's very important for the Ukrainians because it's their country. That's what they are fighting for. So Zelenskyy also will have his views on what has happened so far and what kind of position Trump has on a variety of things. Number one, the landmass that Russia has taken from Ukraine, meaning Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk. Second, exchange of prisoners. Third, the Ukrainian children that he says has been taken by Russia from these areas. Now he wants answers to all of these things. And there has to be a ceasefire, is what the Ukrainians are talking about. If you don't have a ceasefire, if you don't have an end to these hostilities, it doesn't help Ukraine at all. That's the point he will make. And he will want to know from Trump what Trump has promised Putin. Because if he has promised Putin something vis-a-vis Ukraine, he too has to be in the picture.
Joy, one of the crucial things also that has emerged after Donald Trump posted on Truth Social is that his stance has changed. Now he's calling it peace agreement, a direct peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine instead of a ceasefire. But Srinjoy, stay with me. Let's also tell our viewers the key takeaways from this particular meeting that happened in Alaska. Viewers, remember there has been no ceasefire that was agreed upon. The Alaska talks did see significant progress. Vladimir Putin expressed interest in ending the war, and he suggested that the next meeting could be held in Moscow. What grabbed eyeballs, though, was how Russian President Vladimir Putin received an unusually warm welcome as he arrived on American soil. This visit, remember, began with a grand reception, a firm handshake between the two, smiles, as well as a ride in the presidential limousine. American F-35 fighter jets and a B-2 stealth bomber conducted a flypast to mark Vladimir Putin's arrival. Donald Trump has posted on Truth Social that he held calls with Zelenskyy as well as other European leaders. Zelenskyy, as we've been telling you, is now scheduled to meet with Donald Trump at the White House on Monday. In fact, Trump said that instead of a ceasefire, the focus should now be on achieving a direct peace agreement. Taking to social media platform X, Zelenskyy expressed his desire for what he calls real peace and said that the killings must end immediately. He also added that during his phone call with Donald Trump, he called for tougher sanctions on Putin. Meanwhile, let's also tell you how India has reacted to this. The External Affairs Ministry has issued a statement welcoming the Alaska dialogue, calling the pursuit of peace as commendable and appreciating the progress made at the summit. The statement also reiterated that dialogue and diplomacy remain the best way forward. Let me go back to Srinjoy. Srinjoy, as far as India is concerned, I think we've been saying this, that this is not the era of war. We've also been reiterating the fact that dialogue and diplomacy are the way forward. But very interestingly, India has welcomed this summit between the two. In fact, the last time around, the MEA put out a statement that they said India endorses this summit. So crucial role that perhaps India could be playing here.
India has always said it wants peace and it wants the war to end. Now, this is not just India, but all South countries, because the war has caused enormous damage to the economies of all South countries. Let's not forget that because of this, you have high fuel prices, and if you have high prices, then you have to buy fuel from Russia, which leads to 50% of tariffs. That, of course, is India specific. Besides that, high food grain prices, which have affected South countries.
Srinjoy, let me come back to you. Right now, I'm joined by Pathikrit Pen, foreign affairs expert on the phone line. Pathikrit, good evening. Namaskar. What are your takeaways? This was a crucial summit, but perhaps on expected lines, there has been no solid conclusion yet of the meeting that happened.
Well, I think it's a reality check for the United States. The presumption that they can actually threaten other countries and put them to negotiation table and do whatever they want. That is not going to happen with countries like India, Russia, or even for that matter, China and Brazil. So I think the ceasefire, what Trump was expecting that and was stating that if there is no ceasefire, if Putin doesn't agree, there will be consequences and all that. I think by the time the entire summit, that meeting got over, I think there was quite a bit of deflation in his ego and whatever he was trying to state. Putin did not give any assurance about the ceasefire. They only agreed to talk again and meet again. And I think, the way he put a yorker to President Trump by saying that the next meeting should happen in Moscow.
Yeah.
When it's a very interesting proposition, because what Putin has done by agreeing to this meeting is that he has created a divide between Western Europe NATO members and United States. This entire meeting happened without the European countries being part of it, not even Ukraine part of it, and it's pretty clear that Putin will not go for any kind of ceasefire or peace agreement without the West agreeing. That whatever land Russia has acquired and occupied, at the cost of lakhs of Russians giving up their lives, they would not give it up. And I think the expansion of NATO must stop somewhere. That probably is one of the biggest conditions that Putin has put in, that the core issue of this war has to be addressed, which which is the expansion of NATO. Because NATO was created during the Cold War. With the end of Cold War, disintegration of Soviet Union, this organization should have been dismantled. It did not happen. That is what I think where it stands. Trump does not gain anything much except for the fact that he realizes all these threats to India and Russia is not going to work. And that's why he has stated that no more tariff might be added, no additional tariff for countries who are importing oil from Russia.
Well, as far as Trump is concerned, Patikrit, I think as long as he's getting the Nobel Peace Prize, it doesn't really matter what else comes his way. But thanks very much for joining us at the moment.